Hey Soulfam. Okay, I want to talk about Hedera Hashgraph. This is a platform. It's a distributed ledger technology platform. It's not blockchain. It gets kind of wrapped up, I think, when people are talking about cryptocurrencies and blockchain, they just kind of use the term, they overprescribe the term. And I think the important thing that Hedera is trying to solve is a couple things. One is the scalability issue of that we're seeing with like Ethereum, Bitcoin, etc., where only a few transactions can happen over the period of a second, like 5 to 15 transactions on Bitcoin or Ethereum versus like the thousands that are supported on Hedera, but also the security issue. So the reason blockchains got so popular is because they're super secure. They're an immutable ledger, and it allows for these people that don't trust each other around the world to be able to send currency, and for that to get validated across a whole network of nodes, right? If it's good to watch like some intro to what a blockchain is to kind of jump into this, but anyway, I want to talk about I feel like Hedera gets a little overlooked, and I think their marketing kind of sucks. Like they don't really market like some of these huge cryptocurrencies we're seeing are you look at their valuations, and like for instance Hedera, this is sitting at a market capitalization of 2.4 billion. That's a fun number. Look at that. 24442. Sometimes I get into numerology. I think that's kind of interesting right now. You look at the market cap of this, and like that's insane. This is a massive company. Like I came from the startup world, building startups, and to see market caps like this is market cap means like the total valuation of this company, and their fully diluted market capitalization is 15 billion. That's an important number to note. This is because only this many coins have been issued in the value of 2.4 billion. If they were to dump all the coins onto this, onto the, for sale, basically, then it would be worth 15 billion. But I mean, truth be told, this is a kind of a red flag for currencies, and you should always pay attention to the market cap versus the fully diluted market cap. That means they've got these coins in reserve that haven't been released yet, and so these are the ones that are out there trading right now on on Binance and Coinbase, etc., crypto.com, whatever you use, and these are the ones they haven't released yet due to they might have those for miners in the future or whatever. They haven't been released. So this one concerning thing I have about Hedera is that there's just such a disparity here. Like $2.4 billion current market cap, but man, if they were to dump what is that? 2.5 is what percent of 15, right? That's quick math. That's it's basically 1/6, right? Like about 1/6 of the currency has been released. So if they were to dump 5 times more coins into the market, you'd see that price dip per coin. So the coin, if you were to buy a bunch of coins, they could dip. That's a caveat with this one. So that's something to pay attention to. The good thing about Hedera, is that so going back to where having been in the banking world, and I don't know if I mentioned this. I haven't mentioned this in this video yet, but I worked for a few years in the space of blockchain and decentralized ledger technology, building a team this was back in Canada at a telecommunications company. The initial project was to create, this was like my brainchild, was to create a currency backed by computing power at the time. And the reason we were going to do this in Canada is because it turned out that the Canadian government was willing to sponsor this, and also that you have all these cryptocurrency miners with all this computing power, and all it's doing is mining Bitcoin, which sucks. It sucks because it's bad for the environment. It's just computers breaking arbitrary codes in a network in order to create artificial scarcity in that currency to drive up the price, right? So most of the work you hear about miners doing, these massive server farms, it's literally, it's not, making the transactions happen. That's a tiny fraction of the computing power that's happening. Most of it is literally number guessing. It's just a tough challenge for a GPU, a graphics processing unit, to break. And if they just churn all day, like running. And at this point, I've heard one term, Bitcoin churns around the world. If you were to add up all the miners and the processing energy they use, it's enough to power Austria, like round the clock. So like an entire country, the 40th largest like populated country in the world. So that gives you an idea of how much wasted energy goes into this mining. And for all that mining, Bitcoin, look at this. Transaction per second, 5 transactions per second. That means for the whole world. Like, this is important. People out there, and I think a lot of people get this, but if you don't get this yet, we hear so much hype about Bitcoin. And only 3, maybe 5 transactions can happen per second for the entire world. So like the millions of people trading Bitcoins, or fractions of Bitcoins, they gotta wait in line. That's why you send a Bitcoin transaction, you might wait an hour, you might wait more. I mean, it's bad. Ethereum's a little better here with like 12-ish to 15, sometimes, depending on how the network load is moving, as high as 15, 17 transactions per second. But still, we're talking about the entire world. Like, think about how many people go to restaurants and swipe a card. Like, there's more than 12 per second, right? So if you think about Ethereum being the blockchain to support the entire world of transactions, like, come on, like, people, that's illogical. Until of course there's new intermediaries, there's the rollout of the new improvements to the protocol that should accelerate this to maybe 10x, or in some case maybe 100x. But even still, that's still slow, considering, like, you can't imagine if you built a whole application like a social network like Facebook on that, and every like had to be validated across the whole network, and you had to wait an hour for that thing to pop up. I mean, like, that's for things that need a lot of transacting per second. It doesn't really work. So this is why this was the big breakthrough for Hedera. And Hedera is not the only one to do this. I don't want to put them in a class of their own. So like, I might make another video and talk about comparisons to Hedera. But basically, Hedera is able to execute at least 10,000 transactions per second. They say in other articles as much as 500,000 I've heard these wide-ranging numbers, but it's orders of magnitude in the thousands beyond what Ethereum's currently able to do. And at least, even if Ethereum boosts its transaction speed with by integrating with offloading its load onto other chains and then on-ramping it back, there's some creative things I think they can do. I hope I'm not talking too fast. I just want to try to describe I'm still in this process, and I'm actually looking for community out there that's like processing and trying to understand these different frameworks, because I'm investing in these, but more importantly, I want to understand how they work, because Soul Tribe, we got to build a new world. We got to leverage these technologies and really understand them so that we can, central banks have controlled this world for so long. Like, the currencies, the US dollars that we use, they're fiat currencies, they're backed by freaking nothing. Like, and they're pumping, insane amounts of money into these currencies, and like putting the entire nation into massive debt. Like wake up and see what's happening. Like, it looks like they're collapsing these currencies on purpose right now, and the American people and all the other people are going to be left holding the bag as all these companies get bailed out, and we take all this bad debt. Anyway, getting back to Hedera. Sorry, I sometimes take tangents like that, but it's important. It's all connected. this is another big thing. Like the gas fees, right, on Ethereum are, look at the comparison. Like we're talking 1,000th of the cost to send transactions over Hedera. And Hedera is something, so there's something in the banking world called ABFT. You'll probably hear this term more and more and more over time. What that stands for is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. And what it's basically the highest gold standard in security of a transaction, that like they're able to, it's the one, this is literally, they say Hedera is the, as far as like I've researched, Hedera is the only decentralized framework that's able to prove mathematically this ABFT standard in its cryptographically. So that's actually a really big deal. So this is something, you know, there's a lot of frameworks out there, but if you imagine a giant bank like Bank of America or whatever, like a massive company like IBM or Google or whatever, especially for like really secure transactions, you're transacting your like property, your home, let's say, you're selling your house. Like you got to know that that's a really secure transaction. You don't want to run that on a faulty blockchain. Hedera's got it, you know, they're there, and it's a very low cost. Like that one, we're talking 100th of a cent, 100th of a US dollar, a US penny per transaction. So for those of you using NFTs out there, like look what it costs on, like, you know, go to you know, things like OpenSea or you know, whatever, Rarible, Mintable, etc. You're paying these gas fees, you're paying all these fees. That's because at a fundamental level with Ethereum, because they're running on Ethereum with these smart contracts, like that, anything you do, any transaction has to get validated across a massive network of computers and nodes. And those computers need to be compensated. Those are either people or businesses running these GPU miners, the validators in their, out of their garage or out of their large scale. At this point, most of it's like commercial scale, but they get paid for that. That's mining. That's the world of mining. So in a lot of cases, like what's a lot of cases you do want that like high security, but in a lot of other cases you don't need like that's the cost of having to pay that much for a transaction, like multiple dollars, and also the time it takes for that to go through is just like not scalable. The more, as we see it, just think about this logically, people, with the wave of people rushing to build on top of these core blockchains like Ethereum, they're just going to get more and more and more bogged down. So this is not set up for success. So I think, you know, Hedera is one of the backbones that I think we're going to, and look, Cardano, I freaking love Cardano. And honestly, that I want to do a whole nother share on Cardano, because I have so much respect and love for Charles Hoskinson. Like, what a star being. Like, that brother, whoa, like he's here to change the world in a positive way. I feel that from his eyes, his spirit, and what he says. And the way that Cardano is structured, and the way that it's giving grant money to like for developers to build really cool stuff on their platform. So I'll come back to that. Like, my heart is with Cardano. My heart is with Holochain as well. I know that team personally. They're awesome people. And, you know, Holochain is different than, it doesn't have the level of security of Hedera, and I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but just keep your eye on Holochain too, because Holochain is amazing for building like a new social network owned by the users, running on computing power that comes from like the mesh network of cell phones that it's all being run on, you know, rather than a central server like Facebook that owns everything and reaps all the benefits off your data. Like, fuck that. And that's why like Holochain is going to come and change the game. But Hedera, like if you're just like building an investment portfolio and want to hedge these bets, like, and I'm not a financial advisor, I just love at all, I gotta make that clear. Like I just geek out on this. I'm like, I love looking at this technology as a potential way. Like, I hope our whole soul tribe out there that wants to do good things in the world, like real earth angels, I know you're out there. I know you're out there. This is for you. You know, like, we should be investing our resources really well in this time and surfing this wave. And so, like, just putting all of your eggs in one basket isn't wise, because, like, here's the truth about Hedera, for instance, coming back to just the investment side of this. Like, okay, all these things about it, super secure, really high transaction throughput. Like, this thing is bulletproof. It's made for like a Visa MasterCard level of super security, or even more. Like, someone wants to send $1 million wire, someone wants to buy on the futures market, like, you know, $100 million worth of like futures in corn or whatever. They can do it on the Hedera, like, and this all goes back to the gossip protocol. This is something that the CEO, I don't know if they talk about it here on the, they also have an NFT service. They have all these services built on there. I mean, but look at the companies using, I mean, this is like their council, right? IBM, Google, Boeing, LG, you know, Standard Bank, UCL, Wipro. Like, they just had the whole French government utility system adopt Hedera to build all their public utilities on. Like, these guys have actual traction and adoption, and are endorsed by major players. So I think their $2.5 billion market cap is well justified. However, I really want to understand, and maybe some of you out there understand this, but like, that massive amount of like non-released coin in the Hedera, like, what's going to happen when that happens, and what are the regulations in place to make sure that doesn't flood in some weird way that like deflates the value of all of the investors, you know, in the coin. So that's something to pay attention to. Maybe we can get a discussion going here and just all research together. That's why, like, I mean, I want to use this platform to just have these discussions in community, you know. So this is their governing council. Something interesting. So Facebook, actually, at one point, this is a big story, and I want to say 2020 or 2019, but Facebook straight up jacked like a lot of, they you know, basically copied the entire business model and built a governing council just like Hedera did. They tried to, I think, use some of the sort of like on the protocol layer, like a lot of the same design. And this thing went up on the Wall Street Journal at one point, this like, thanks Facebook, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I remember when this came out, and I thought it was so interesting. It was kind of a like an interesting like middle finger to Facebook that basically copied them to launch their Libra coin. Although Libra isn't really out yet. This is like, if you don't know about it, look into it. You know, it's like Facebook launching a one world currency. Like, yeah. And I don't, you know, that would be the competitor to Hedera. Like, it would be Facebook Libra would be another platform like Hedera, which, and you know, Facebook has so much traction because of all of its user base. It would, you know, definitely have a lot of power play there. But here's the thing. This is important. Hedera owns, or Swirlds actually, which is the CEO that like manages Hedera, basically, like the company Swirlds, which basically has an exclusive licensing of a particular patent to Hedera as a currency, as a platform and currency. It's exclusively, from my understanding, licensed to Hedera. P.S. I want to give mad credit to a dear brother of mine, John, who is like my sensei that's been teaching me so much about all this. And so credit to him for really like informing me about a lot of this. I really respect him. And he works with he's built several entire, you know, currencies. So I learned a lot from him. But he really clued me into Hedera back when I was building the project, you know, a couple of years ago. And so this is like, what this tells you is that like Facebook's trying to copy these guys. Google already is like partner, like their partners are major tech firms, IBM, right, etc. So this tells you like Google, these companies are not working around Hedera. Like, Hedera's got a good stake in the ground with its intellectual property. and that is that it's able to achieve that asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, highest level of security, right? While staying at this super high transaction throughput. And if you want to get into the technical side of that, it's pretty neat how they do it with the gossip protocol, it's called, which basically it's rather than validating with the entire network. So every time, remember, when you send a Ethereum transaction, it's having to do a validate with each node, like, hey, is it true? Is it true? Does this person have this in the, is this like, has to move the entire like essence of the contract agreement and store it across all these nodes, and then check with all the nodes the sort of like relative ledger between the two parties. So like, whereas like there's some really neat ways I can feel myself wanting to dive into the weeds on this, and I'm gonna make this video is already getting really long. I can go more, and I'll make another one that goes a little deeper into the weeds on this, because I think it's real, like I nerd out on it, but I think I don't want to like lose people. And there's also places where my knowledge hits like the edge, and I'm still learning. But you know, that's a big deal. That like, let's say Facebook launches Libra, is that a threat to Hedera? Well, I think they're gonna have to contend with this intellectual property. Like, they're gonna have to buy out Hedera, and that's gonna skyrocket. Like, you're one way or another, Hedera's got this really important intellectual property, or Swirlds does, and so as long as Swirlds' patent is like directly tied to Hedera, cannot be like, they can't like backdoor, or just like Swirlds offers it to Facebook, and the people who have invested in Hedera get hosed, and Swirlds makes a whole bunch of money. Want to make sure that that's not going to happen. So there's some additional research that needs to happen here. Yeah, here's the thing. Like, you look at like this. Here's an article from The Guardian on Facebook's Libra coin, and like, is it safe? So there's privacy concerns. Duh. I mean, Facebook is not they haven't been the best stewards of data I've ever seen when it comes to their user base. So I'm not gonna just believe that they don't have some sort of data acquisition interest in launching this coin and watching the entire world's financial transactions. I don't trust Facebook yet. I want to see them step up as like social impact leaders in the world. If you work at Facebook out there, yo, I know there's good souls in there. Honestly, on a separate note, we need to have in the tech space a union. Like, you know how in the past you had workers unions in like, you know, really everything, like everything from mining to teachers to, you know, engineers, whatever. What about the technology sector? So that we can stand up for ethics in this time in large companies that are kind of like forcing our hand. That's why I'm like, I worked for like 16 years deep in the tech industry, 17 years. And you know what? Now I feel like just so grateful to be out of the corporate. Like, I haven't worked in a corporate job since the pandemic began. So I've been like independent consulting since then. So I'm finally out of all my non-compete contracts. I can actually speak out loud, which is so nice. But I know when you're in it, you have like a muzzle over your mouth, and it's hard. Anyway, okay, I'm going on a tangent. I do that sometimes. Later, I want to talk about the need for a tech ethics union. It's something I feel really passionate about, and maybe there's others of you out there that feel that, because, yo, this is the time to really, again, like, society is ready to, humanity is here to be stewards of a new era on this planet that's beautiful and fair, and just like, you know, the decentralized technology is going to make it possible for everybody to like have real voting, like not once every 4 years, like literally every day we could change the direction of our government if we wanted to, right? Now that DLT technology is getting widely accepted rather than feared, we're going to be able to do crazy I mean, that's just the beginning. Don't even get me started. I'm taking a tangent. I'll future video. Okay, future share. Okay, so is it safe, right? Facebook does not have asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. They claim there's some question about it having like BFT or Byzantine fault tolerance. It's different to have like this finality, it's known as. at the moment of transaction. So, okay, this back to this figure here, important. And the reason these things are important right now to talk about these comparisons here, this is important. Okay, transaction confirmation. I send a Bitcoin to you. You wait 10 to 60 minutes to get that Bitcoin because it has to confirm again among all these nodes, right? And for those of you who are new to this, look it up, like learn about how blockchain really works. You could probably, it took me like a lot back in 2016, 17. I needed to like have it explained a number of times before it really clicked. So don't feel bad if it doesn't. So it has to check across that whole network, right? Ethereum, you wait 10 to 20 seconds, right? So that's way better, obviously, than 10 to 60 minutes. But still, as the network gets bogged down, sometimes we're seeing that go up even higher than 20 seconds. I've been noticing that. So versus like Hedera, you have a 3 to 5 seconds and bam, finality. And you know, that's powerful for something with that level of security. So the meaning of this technology in the world, in these like worlds of like massive commerce where you need that level of like clear finality quickly, and you know, I think this creates a ton of value, and there's a number of industries I know are gonna like really benefit from this. But again, Hedera's marketing sucks. Like I Google Hedera, like I don't see that much. I'm like, all these cryptocurrencies are like pretty terrible at their marketing. Like, given that their valuations are in like the billions, can you not hire better video teams to like explain yourselves? Like, anyway, maybe that's just not their strong suit. You know, it's like, I've worked in the tech world. People aren't always good at that. They're just like super tech focused. And I'm just saying, when you have that much resource in your war chest, why wouldn't you devote like millions to the propagation of like clear explainers and grant money built in to get developers onto your platform? So I'm curious what Hedera is doing with that. I need to learn more. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up soon, but I just like, here's that ecosystem in Hedera of like who's, you know, it's on all these, it's already listed on a ton of exchanges. I wouldn't be surprised if it winds up eventually on, you know, Coinbase soon. And you know, we have it on the council is really powerful. You've got their integrators, IBM's on there. Like, you're gonna see them, that's huge, right? Look at these. If you check out, like, I mean, the fact that IBM is one of these massive companies that's an integrator means all the giant client base, and remember who IBM's client base is, right? Google's client base. Like, these are massive businesses. If they're like, they command access to all of these customers, and they're moving on to the Hedera, like, this is big deal. This is a lot of adoption I think we're gonna see in 2021, 2022, and so it's gonna push that valuation up. I'm not really talking here to the hype cycles of this thing. I'm just thinking about raw value of what this is. And you got to do the math, right? Like, if they're generating 1/100th of a cent per transaction, what are the industries that can adopt this? This is like a simple research thing. If you're like an economics student and you're looking at this stuff, like, look at the transaction fees, look at like, so the value of a coin like Hedera, right? Like HBAR is this ticker symbol, HBAR. The valuation of it, I jumped over to this Libra diagram. The value of this coin is based on like, if everyone adopted this, if you were going on like, you know, Macy's and Target and everyone else is using this as the back end of their Coinbase systems, like, what is the real market? Like, if they were to really, if we assume that some percentage of IBM's clients, Google's clients, and all these other integrators, right? Like, look at these, and the ones that have, Boeing, we've got some Deutsche Telekom on here. We've got, you know, LG, like these companies and all of the companies they own start to do their transactions on this, and they're paying a cent for every transaction. What is the volume of transactions currently running through these? Like, someone got to do a mapping of the current landscape. This is a homework assignment. I haven't done this, but maybe some of you out there, like, together we can form like a collaborative coalition to kind of sort through this stuff. What is the net, you know, like, what is the are these valuations we're seeing realistic? Like, eventually there's going to be a market correction. Right now we're seeing this skyrocketing in all these altcoin prices and everything. I don't know, like, look at markets do this on annual basis. Like, there's going to be potentially some correction. I don't want to call, like, maybe it just keeps going, but eventually, like, I'd rather invest based on, like, actual, like, grounded information and in terms of the real value of these things. I think right now everyone's just getting the F out of, like, the dollar and currencies that are clearly, like, bloating themselves into destruction and just, like, bailing on these failed systems and getting into the crypto. It's like but it's a panic rush, you know? Feels like that. It doesn't feel like it's grounded in clear science, like, clear, like, what. Right now, if we assume that in a year all of the connected companies to these groups are built on top of Hedera, and you multiply the number of transactions of each per year times 0.0001, right? 100th of a cent. So if there's, like, X billions of transactions running through on apps built on top of Hedera, what does that wind up generating? And that will tell you the actual value of this, like, coin. If it's 2.5 billion valuation based on, like, you know, let's just say that if this adoption happened, it would generate $500 million a year. Maybe that justifies a $2.5 billion valuation. If that, you know, that's a 5x on its, like, revenue, given, like, speculative growth as well, right? Which is reasonable. In the tech industry, got a 1 to 5 is easy. Like, companies like Amazon have often had, like, they're generating, you know, $1 billion and they're valued at 100, like, because of just people believing in it, right? Going somewhere. And so do they really have this market position? Do they really have the innovative team? And so far, I love the Hedera team. I mean, as far as their brilliance, but I don't know. I'm still feeling like, I look at the Cardano CEO and I just want him to win. He's, like, got a good soul. You just feel that. This is where the, like, intuitive heart in me really gets involved. And God, like, Holochain and Cardano, like, who are those good people, those good teams? They've got to have a brilliant product. It's got to be built, like, at a level that is, like, cryptographically and, like, in a market positioning standpoint, like, really solid. But then, of all those ones that are built really well, what is the team that's not gonna, like, sell out? Like, I'm freaking sick of it. Like, you know, like, I don't want to see, like, you know, I want to invest as I hope to see Soul Tribe out there, like, that we invest not only in what's intelligent to invest in, but in, you know, technologies and platforms that are here to help the world, that are here to take social responsibility, ecological responsibility, and go the distance with that. In fact, you know what? I wish that there was some sort of a, like, agreement, like a smart contract built in to some of these cryptocurrencies that was, like, and maybe there is, like, if some of these decentralized platforms, that was like a constitution, a bill of rights, the way that they will use user data, like, the way that like a constitution about that keeps it. I guess this is the you know, the disallowance of a hard fork and things like that, but and I guess they are built that way, but I think that's an important comparison chart for us to look at. If we look at these, like, what are the checks and balances in place so that these, you know, massive organizations and decentralized platforms we've given our power to, we're giving our investment to, are not going to just, like, take the money and, you know, kind of lose their ethical focus like we see so often in the corporate world. Like Facebook started off cool, right? Remember when Mark Zuckerberg was like writing all of us a big note like, hey, remember when they rolled out like the mini feed and people had big reactions to it because it was really invasive on privacy, and Mark Zuckerberg wrote this like individual note to the whole community. And at that point, it felt like they cared about the users, right? So we kept giving trust and our energy to it. And then at some point, it turned, right? And the users became the product. And the big data companies that they were transacting with became the new customers of Facebook. We just became the product. And they didn't really give a shit about us at that point, you know? Didn't feel that way. Didn't feel that way to me. Where they kept updating their user license agreement like they could just update it at will. So the same thing is here when you look at things like Hedera and their ability to dilute, their ability with that, like the existence of, you know, where was that? Yeah, boom. 15, you got a ton of coins just lurking out there. I'm super zoomed in on this, excuse me, this page. Yeah, anyway, they got tons of coins just like hanging out. It's like, oh yeah, circulating supply, 7 billion. Oh no, it's a super, oh, we're taking off. Okay, got tiny. Sometimes I like, the computer lags like that. Okay, yeah, here we go. Circulating supply, 7 billion, max 50 billion. So you've got like 43 billion just lurking out there. You gotta always look at how many coins are lurking when you look at these, and what are the stipulations about how they get introduced, and that it, you know, it's not sketchy. Does that make sense? It's kind of like in the United States, there's X number of dollars that exist, right? Let's say $1 trillion. Of course, it's a different number than that, but let's just say. And then the government just decides to print $2 trillion out of freaking nowhere. Well, duh, the $1 trillion that, if you've got $1,000 under your bed, that $1,000, now that there's 3 trillion instead of $1 trillion, is worth $333, not the 1,000 it was, because there's 3 times as much, right? Inflation. So these guys could inflate, and I want to understand better, and I don't right now, what controls the rate at which that inflation occurs. Anyway. Okay, that's good for now. Some just thoughts on Hedera. I think it's a super solid buy, though, to hedge right now. Like, I think I'm looking at, anyway, again, not financial advice at all. Just like, for me, I think it's exciting to imagine the applications of it. And they've got, you know, what's cool is they've got these other services. They've got a token service to launch tokens on top of Hedera, right? They've got this consensus service, but actually to get deeper into it, they have an NFT service. I'm just looking where they have it. So you can build an NFT on top of it. But, you know, my homie that's like really deep in working with Hedera said he's not super impressed with their NFT. I don't understand enough right now to really elaborate further than that. Where does it show all their, yeah, so, anyway, oh yeah, so they got the, yeah, they're launching all these other additional services, and anyway, I think I should probably end this here. It's been a long one. Wow, for any of you that watch this whole thing, I freaking honor you, and let me know your thoughts. Do you have thoughts on this? Like, I'll break down in a future video my analysis on like Cardano and like why I'm stoked about them. I mean, I think a lot of people are. I was watching this video on that the Cardano CEO was putting up the other day on like Africa and what they want to do there. It was so inspiring, just like seeing how they want to like. I think they're gonna stay true, you know. And that guy like Charles, he bounced. He was one of the Ethereum co-founders, and he bounced because they took venture capital funding. Like, heck yeah. Like, props to him being that kind of like, I really kind of did a rabbit hole on Charles Hoskinson. He's rad. You know, of course I respect Vitalik too at Ethereum, and I think this guy here, the CEO, right, Lehman Baird of Hedera, is brilliant. This guy like came out of the air. I want to say for the military, he built some of this like protocol stuff. He's really smart, and so I think it's built really well. But they sort of are walking the line of a decentralized platform that's also selling out. But that makes it a good investment. Oh, I want to talk about Holochain. I am so stoked about Holochain and what it could do for our like revolution right now in terms of like us launching platforms off the grid, like building our own freaking network, our own grid, our own telecom that's not sitting on freaking Verizon or Comcast or whatever. Like, we could do some amazing stuff with it. I see so many applications. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm gonna look into like what kind of grants that they have available. Anyway, future videos on that. I think there's a few things I mentioned in this video. Please remind me too if there was something you were like, heck yeah, I want to hear about that, and I haven't put something up within the next month. I want to start to be more active in this space and build a community here, because I really like, yeah, we've got a revolution, people. It's an spiritual, social revolution happening now, and it happens when we dive in and like use the tools that are right in front of us. And these are the tools. So while you're investing, learn how they work. Learn how they work, because you might actually spark some really cool ideas on top of them, and like build a team to like ideate and launch these things. And I'm looking for those people too. If you're out there, my background is it's in the artificial intelligence space and, cloud computing, like kind of like high performance computing infrastructure side. And that's why, I honestly had the idea and design that Holochain has. I'm stoked they did it. Luckily, I've gone through a lot of like humbling in my life. My ego isn't bruised by like someone else building the thing I designed, and that's happened so many times in my life. I'm okay with it. But yeah, it's solid. It's really, because imagine if like all our cell phones, all our computers we could be gaining currency that's backed by that computing power, because we know that's an asset. Look at AWS, like how much value there is in computing, Google Cloud, whatever. These are mega industries. We hold in our pockets like the ability to create an entire replacement of that industry and run our own. We don't have to be slaves to Facebook. We don't have to be slaves to Instagram. We don't have to get our data harvested. We could be hosting our own services and decentralized. Like everyone that's part of this new version of Facebook, this new version of Instagram, this new version of so many things, we are all owners of it. We each own a share, and we each produce what it needs to continue. That's what's insane about this. Like, and a certain part of the pool goes to financing, the maintenance of the user experience side and all that, like, but building user experience has become so cheap, like it doesn't cost what it once did. So anyway, that's a whole other thing, is like how empowered our generation is to launch applications without needing to go through the gatekeepers and venture capital and all that bullshit. Trust me, I launched two startups, and I had to go through all the hoops of like the angel investments and venture capital groups, and it's heartbreaking. Like, you got to give away your soul, you really do, and they pull, it's like hooks and strings on your spirit, and you can't run. Can't tell you how many board meetings I've been in where it's like, Derek, this isn't a fucking charity. Like, you're gonna have to, you gotta make, you have to make like unethical choices because of fiduciary duty, financial duty. And that is the problem with the world. And that's why decentralized technology has the power to change everything. I'm so stoked about it. Anyway, I'm going on way too long. Yep. I'll leave you with, I'm just telling you, like, oh yeah, Holochain, check it out right here. Holochain, check it out. Boom. HOLOCHAIN.org. This guy, just watch some of this stuff. Like, I want to just evangelize how rad. Yeah, this guy right here. It's like a rendition of him. Charles Hoskinson. Just look him up on YouTube. He's been sharing really openly a lot of stuff. Actually, I did post a video recently because this video got pulled down by Google for violating community guidelines. Like, okay, Google, your censorship is bullshit, and we're gonna build better YouTube platforms. If you're like, I know I'm putting this on YouTube, so thank you, but you gotta cut that shit out. Like, you gotta, like, it's not ethical. It's not ethical to pull down a video of, like, you know. Anyway, I could go off on that, but I already did, so I'm gonna end this. I keep saying that. I keep going. Bless your patient heart. Love you, soul family. You, in the space, in a future time, looking back at this time. I wish we could just be sitting in a room talking. I miss that so much. Yeah, can you imagine if we got like a think tank together and like all these like people that are ready to just evolve the human story and have the technical abilities, all the puzzle pieces together to solve this. You know, oh my God, we could create a flywheel because there's so much darkness and so much light right now. Anyway, I'm getting into this sort of spiritual realm with it. Okay, for real. Bless you. Have a beautiful day or night, whatever it might be right now for you. All right. I'm a love, Derek Lyon, Morrison, signing out.